Hello and welcome. My name is Joe and I am the Panicked Monk, and you are watching Lost in Time, a Dwemer's Tale. Now, we last left off with Szenac making his way into Arkngthamz and coming to some tough realizations that his homeland has been destroyed and that there's a very distinct possibility that these creatures he's come across are what's left of what he knew as Falmer, or the Snow Elves. So I kind of envisioned this whole area as maybe an area that's familiar to him, that used to be maybe where a lot of forges used to reside, and where he did a lot of his smithing and training, and all of that has been lost, opened up and swallowed up and destroyed by this chasm that opened up by the tremors and the quakes. And so at this point, I mean, he really doesn't have, there's nothing left of the city he knew. There isn't anything left of that's distinguishable or familiar other than a few hallways.
Quite a place, huh? It was even more impressive before it all fell to pieces.
So he's become even more reliant on this former adventurer to help get him through to where it is, to wherever it was that she was going. Again, we've said that Szenac knows a few alchemy tricks, mostly those that would revolve around creating smithing enhancements, smithing potions, that kind of thing. So he is going to grab a few things as he comes across them. Maybe some things he's not quite sure of, but like glowing mushrooms, for sure he knows that those can be used. Hopefully at some point when he gets some time to rest and not be on the move all the time. That wraith has saved our bacon many, many times over. Of course, being Dwemer and being a smith, he's been trained in the art of warfare, if you will, in using armors and shields and swords, but he wasn't necessarily a military person. He wasn't a soldier. So his abilities, his practice is going to be pretty rusty. He knows the technique so that he can build the weapons and armor and maintain all the things around that, but I mean, that's a much different act than actually using them day in and day out. So we're making heavy use of our ghost walk to try to get ahead, and if there's anything that we're going to run into, that will help draw it out. What I like about using the ghost walk in this kind of way is that with followers especially, so if I have a conjured wraith or this this ghost that's with me, I can't remember her name now, they'll actually follow you. I mean, especially if I'm not in sneak, they'll actually follow you in Ghost Walk up, so it'll kind of bring your followers up ahead And then when when the spell dissipates and you come back to your original starting location, your followers are all way up ahead of you. So it kind of gives you a buffer and helps drag them into an area that maybe could be a better benefit and help to you than if they're kind of stuck in a small alleyway or walkway or whatever it might be behind you. And then, you know, it doesn't make you invincible by any means. You can still get hit and attacked. But it just draws your enemies out and gives you that little bit of distance, especially if you can be upright and running. You can put a lot of distance in between where you started and where you end up before the spell dissipates. So this is a really, it's one of my favorites. It's so handy. Now, if you're going to be sneaking, you can use it even more effectively for recon and that kind of thing. And I believe this is part of the Apocalypse spell package, so. And Szenac is making heavy use of this and the Conjured Wraith just because he is not familiar with what this area has become. You know, of course, the Dwemer weren't going to have, you know, ramps like this and all this unfinished stone around. I mean, this is all a product of the earthquakes and the seismic instability. Nice. I'll take that. The focus right now for Szenac is to just simply get, well, oddly enough, the focus would be to get out of Arkngthamz at this point. He spent all this time, you know, this first portion of this whole week trying to get back home, and now that his home is obviously gone, he needs to get out and recollect, regroup, and come to a decision of what to do next. And that decision is going to involve going up to Winterhold to the Mages College. Back in the first era, when he and his people were still around on Tamriel, the Mages College was, you know, one of the greater cities of the Nords of the area, and he would know of it for its college, for its you know, its library, the knowledge held within. So to him, that's going to be the first point to start and try to see if we can do some research to find out what happened in this time span that of basically just nothing that he has no recollection of. So he needs to get out of this area and back to the surface, which he's not thrilled about, but there's no other way, and make his way to the College of Winterhold so that he can properly research what it is that happened to his people, and, you know, just get some real solid ideas on what's happened overall. There's so much time that he's missed, and it's becoming more and more obvious that he has been out of time for many hundreds of years. He really doesn't know how long. But if the Argonian he ran across is correct, and he really is in the fourth era, you know, how long were the eras in between? Now, each era varies. It's not a set amount of time. The first era was by far the longest with, I don't know. Gosh, I think that was close to, 3,000 to 4,000 years in the first era. So, he needs to find out more information about, you know, if this is the fourth era, how long is this era? Has it been? how long have the second and third eras been, and when did the first era end? So he still doesn't have a lot to go by. He doesn't have a lot of information to work with, and he needs to find all that out, and the only place he knows to do that is going to be the Mages College. Now you can hear that kind of chattering, and he's been able to associate that with those large insects, the charas, and it sounds like they're maybe below him, but he can't see anything, and his spell won't reach down that far. So he's learned a few things. He's learned a few things since coming here. He knows he's been displaced for a long period of time. Not how much, but for a long time. He knows, or is coming to the realization, that the creatures that he's been fighting in these caves are what's the remnants of the snow elves. He doesn't want to believe it, but he can't deny the increasing facts that that's what it is. And he's learning more about these insect-type creatures. I'm not sure if he would have run into those, or if they would have evolved, or... I'm not sure. It seems like Chars would have been perhaps something that the Dwemer would have run into and encountered from time to time when building their cities. But they certainly wouldn't have been domesticated like they appear to be. So he himself personally probably would have never run into any of these things, but they probably would have been known. They seem like a creature that has been around a long time, kind of like the sturgeon, just hasn't changed or evolved because there's been no need. Their current form is serving them quite well, so oh, nice. So I think the Chars probably have been around for a long time in this same form, but they wouldn't have been maybe quite as prevalent, and like I say, certainly not domesticated. So at the Winter's College, at the Mages College, the Winter's College, at the Winterhold College, there's a few things he needs to look up. He needs to find out more information, what happened to the Falmer, what are they all about. They're obviously become pretty powerful, and not as magical as maybe their former selves used to be, although as slaves, I'm sure the Dwemer would have beaten that out of them, for lack of a better term, and probably had something to do with the mushrooms and the fungus that they were made to consume. Probably would have inhibited their magic abilities, because I can't imagine a slave race being, it would be quite a threat if they could still use magic. But they have definitely become formidable fighters. So what else do we need to do at the Winter's College? We need to find out as much as we can on our own people, on the Dwemer. And we need to find out exactly how much time has passed since we last remember. And then, in doing so, maybe we'll be able to research or discover, what Kagrenak was doing. Also, in doing so, I think, maybe not quite yet, but in the near future, Szenac is going to begin to develop this sense of preservation. I mean, if he truly is the last of his kind, he's going to probably feel an obligation to begin preserving his heritage, the culture of his people. So that's going to be another aspect of his learning and his research, is what's left of his people, where is it, and how can he go and gather it to preserve his culture. So these are going to be some of the things that he is going to focus on, and I think this cultural preservation is going to be kind of a big deal for him. And so coming up in future episodes, we're going to see Szenac really begin to focus on Dwemer ruins and artifacts and objects, because it's all he knows, and he is going to begin to be afraid that it's going to get lost, and that people are going to, if they haven't already, misconstrue what his people were all about. Well, get out of the way then. The ever issue with the follower. Always in the way. So if these creatures, not these particular ones, but if the Falmer, as they exist now in Skyrim, are truly the descendants of the Snow Elves, it definitely makes more sense why they would be carrying Dumox and other Dwemer artifacts, whether it be just gears, metal, whatever, because they would have kind of taken over the Dwemer city-states. I guess take over is probably a pretty loose term, but they would have re-inhabited them because they were, I mean, right there, so why not? And in part of that, collecting all this stuff, so, to have the coinage of the Dwemer on them, it makes more sense if Szenac were to think about it in more detail, which I'm sure he would. He's a very... What type of person is Szenac? Well, he's a detailed person. He's an engineer. He's a smith. It's all about calculations and detail, right? So, not just understanding the materials and the substrates that you're working with, but how they interact and how the properties evolve and change as you work with it. So he's a very calculated person. So he's going to take this task of reclaiming his heritage with that same kind of scientific, methodical approach. Going to the college, reading up what's available, formulating a plan to retake and gather the things that are important or he deems important. And he's also going to need to... have to formulate a place to bring them. Where to store these things. I mean, he's not going to carry all this crap around on his body. Okay, that was me thinking that I had my Conjured Wraith spell active and actually using Ghost Walk instead, so... little bit of confusion there on my part, but seemed to work out okay. Man, what a mess. What in the world? This must have been quite the quake or series of quakes. Who knows how many of... Come on, get out of the way. Seriously. Move. Move. Oh, great. All right. Thank you, Ghost Adventurer. What's super cool about this is I'm really not sure what's down here, so I could be walking into a whole nest of either these Falmer or the Charis. Who knows? I mean, there's these little catacombs that they pop out of all around, so who knows? So this is fantastic. Nothing like taking a long drop down. Some irony there. Or maybe recollection, I don't know. All too familiar, considering recent events. Falling down a deep hole into water. I'm just kind of glad he didn't hit something hard and find himself ragdolled. Alright, let's try this again. Maybe she'll stay out of our way this time. There you are. Thanks for that, by the way. I would think right now that Szenac is pretty much completely lost. I mean, just... physically, he doesn't know where he is. These things have... there's tunnels that have opened up over the years. These things have burrowed into who knows what to create...
Feels like ages ago.
to create their homes and their little catacombs and hives.
There, out on the log. I wondered what happened to
Oh,
it.
that's nice. Now, as we know, Szenac does not use the bow, so he really doesn't care. He just doesn't care about her bow. He's not going to go walk on a unstable log that could tip down at any second just so he can find her bow. But what he will do is look around and continue. Like to take this time to say thank you for coming back, and I hope everyone's doing well and everyone's ready for this season, the holiday season that is upon us at this time. Not sure if I am, but ready or not, here it comes.
Here we go.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, I think we're going to wrap it up. Thank you for joining me, and until next time.